Hello, and welcome to today's Customer Service Week webinar, The Future of Self-Service, Empowering and Educating Customers. I'm Megan Selva, and I'll be your moderator today. Today's webinar is brought to you by Rescue by LogMeIn. You'll find a link to the Rescue website in the Attachments tab beneath the webinar player. Before we begin, we have just a few housekeeping announcements. The slides will advance automatically throughout the event. If you are experiencing any technical problems, please refresh your browser. You can submit questions for the panel at any time during the event using the question tab below the webinar player. You'll also be able to download the slides from today's presentation by opening the Attachments tab beneath the webinar player. Remember that today's webinar will be available on demand shortly after the completion of this live event, and you'll receive an email reminder to let you know it's available. We encourage you to be social throughout our presentation today. You can connect with HDI on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and on our members-only community site, HDI Connect, to interact with other attendees, share what you've learned, and keep the interaction going. With that, I'm pleased to introduce today's panelists. We have Doug Tedder, an HDI Business Associate and Independent Consultant. We have Al Hopper, a Customer Service Leader. We have Kelly Doherty, a Director of Program Management at Ascend Learning, and Sam Armstrong, a Customer Success Manager with LogMeIn. Doug Tedder, as I said, is an HDI Business Associate. He's also the principal of Tedder Consulting, a service management and IT governance consultancy. Prior to starting his business, Doug spent more than 25 years working in corporate IT organizations in a variety of local, regional, and global roles. Doug holds numerous industry certifications in disciplines ranging from ITIL, COBIT, Lean IT, DevOps, KCS, and organizational change management. An active volunteer in the ITSM community, Doug is also a member and former president of ITSMF USA, as well as a member of HDI. Al Hopper is an Army veteran with more than 20 years of experience in customer service. He spent 12 years working in the main contact center for an international bank. In 2015, he completed his MBA and co-founded a full-service digital agency. He has been nationally recognized as a thought leader in social media customer service and contact center management. He's also a co-host of the popular weekly customer service Twitter chat that focuses on all aspects of customer service. Kelly Doherty has worked in IT services for more than 15 years. She speaks at industry forums and consults on the process of developing and maintaining self-service strategies and building effective and efficient self-service portals. A published self-service strategist, Kelly is also a certified project management professional. And finally, Sam Armstrong. Sam has been with LogMeIn for nearly 4 years, spanning roles across the customer support organization. As a customer success manager, Sam is responsible for increasing product adoption and usage by empowering customers to better understand their businesses and helping them leverage all the features and functionalities that LogMeIn products have to offer. And now that I've introduced the panelists, we'll get on to our feature presentation, our panel discussion. According to the most recent Practices and Salary Survey, which will be released as a final report this fall, self-service technologies are the #1 tool organizations are looking to add, replace, or upgrade in the next 12 to 18 months. So for these organizations, the future is now. With that in mind, on to our first question. Is there a difference between self-service and self-help? And if so, how important is that distinction or difference? Kelly, I know you've recently implemented a pretty significant self-service program at your prior company. So what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that are that it does matter. I think in my world, the difference between self-service and self-help are kind of a matter of nomenclature. Self-service is really the program, the overarching program that you're developing. It encapsulates how you're going to facilitate these customer service interactions, what that might look like, what are all the components of it, kind of a broader view of what self-service is and what you hope to be. Self-help is a component of self-service, so self-help would be the tools that enable customers to come into that site or that program and to really completely serve themselves, whether that be a knowledge article, whether that be macros that they can click on and just resolve the issue, or whether that be an information store where instead of calling or chatting, they can just reach out and see maintenance records of systems that are up and down, or instructions on how to use a product, or error messages or things like that. So I guess self-service is the overarching program, which is going to have multiple components, and self-help is a component of that.
Outstanding. Doug or Al or Sam?
Yeah, so I definitely agree that they're two different, one is part of the other. I look at self-service as kind of the DIY component. Think of like a banking app where you can log in, check your balances, transfer monies, do what you need on your own, doing it by yourself, DIY. And then self-help is kind of like a DIY, but it's more of a treasure hunt. Thinking for like using a YouTube video or a how-to. You want to get the help, but you want to look and try to resolve it before having to call for help.
And Doug or Sam? So Kelly, how significant is that distinction or difference? If you're a company looking, kind of looking across the landscape, is that, what's the importance there?
I don't think it's wholly significant. I think the real focus point needs to be really defining your self-service program. Really, when you do a needs analysis and you kind of develop your marketing plan and your ROI, is really understanding all the components that go into that self-service plan, right? What's the umbrella? What's the view? What are the things we're going to put in first? How are we going to layer this? I think that's really the more important things. The nomenclature between the two, not extremely important, right? But more like the plan. What is our plan for self-service? What kind of components do we want to put in there? What are the business needs that are going to drive that? I think that's a better focus.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I think is important, though, as you start to consider those layers, Kelly, and I hope you would agree, is what is that user experience that we want to have when folks are interacting, whether it's self-help or it's self-service. I think that's an important consideration with either of these things.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think when they, what are the expectations of the customer or the user coming in? Are they, are you setting those expectations right when they come in? And when I go to the site, am I going to be, fully serviced, get everything I need to know, or I'm going to have to step out and call, and it's, that kind of thing. I think really knowing and designing that program is really key, before you even start. Knowing what those mean to your team, your business customers, and your ROI objectives.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Great. So for organizations that are preparing to implement self-service or are in the very early stages, what would you guys consider to be some of the must-haves? What are the things they absolutely have to have done or acquired or, Kelly, to your point, mapped out before they really get deep into it? And Al, I'm going to pass this one to you first.
Sure. So I think the first thing you've got to do is really do a journey map of what it is you're trying to accomplish. Are you trying to reduce customers calling into the help desk? Do you have a series of level 1 issues that can hopefully be resolved by someone who might need a little bit of education as an end user? So really understanding who you're trying to help out, and then also I look at the how. Is it as simple as sending an updated FAQ all the time, or adding a message to a knowledge base saying, hey, check out the latest FAQ on this issue, or maybe having a recurring headline? How are you going to store and show the self-help? And then also getting everyone involved, talk to the help desk, find out what are the top issues. And can they be resolved by self-help, or is it just a recurring issue that needs to be looked at in a different way? Really just getting a hold of the community that you're trying to design the self-help for is really the big key, I think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Kelly, I know you, as I said to you recently, you did this for the company you worked for just prior. So,
Yeah, I mean, Al, I think it's an excellent point about the journey map. I mean, you've got to have a plan, right? Don't just throw it up there, but really spend the time and the effort to develop a plan. And I think what was key to us really is that you need to know your business customers, your customers. You need to know who they are, who's coming to your portal, And the reason why that's important is you need to write that portal or that self-service in a business language they understand. It cannot be run from an IT perspective. They're not going to understand it. You're going to have a low adoption rate. They're not going to be able to really truly help themselves. So I think it really starts in the very beginning of really understanding your business customers. Not only that, but really understanding the business language. How do they speak? What kinds of words do they use? Really, understanding that is key, really, to the success of the portal, right? How do they want to see things? How do they want things labeled? And being consistent, especially if it's an internal self-service, is being consistent with the look and feel of your customer culture, your company culture, right? Using the colors and the nomenclature and that's just a comfort level when they come to this portal or this self-service help area that it feels like home to them, right? It feels like something that they can be comfortable with. And I think you're going to have a higher adoption rate when that happens. So, and a lot of times IT organizations, there's a gap there, right? They think they understand the business. They think they know the business language, but in reality, there's a gap, right? And that was really apparent to us as we rolled out our portal. So one of the things that we did was we brought in some business advocates, right, to come in and really be our language translator, if you will. And they helped us look at the portal from a little bit different perspective than just IT, really making it more customer-friendly, more a higher usability rate on that portal, because we weren't able to translate ourselves, right? So if you can't do it yourself, bring in those business advocates that can help you. And you can bring them in a number of ways, right? You can bring them in as pilot users. You can bring them in, as full advocates the whole way through, whatever your business allows. But I think that's one of the key things is making sure that whatever you do, you're really focused on the customers that are going to use the portal. And secondarily, I think another good cautionary thing is try to not change the world overnight, is to take things in bite-sized chunks, right? So start with your highest value, maybe your more simplistic things first, right, and reach success there, and then continue to evolve it and add once you get that that gain or that adoption rate. Too many people try to undertake too much, and it ends up either being too complicated or taking up too much time before launch, those kinds of things. So I think those are some really important things to consider as you're either redoing or getting ready to launch a self-service initiative.
Would you guys say that there's a level of sophistication or maturity that an organization should be at before they attempt self-service, or is it something anyone can do with the proper preparation?
I think it can happen at any level. It really depends on perhaps the industry and to her point, the sophistication of the customer and who the users are going to be. If they're already familiar with the concepts, maybe you're just a new business in an already existing industry, and it's probably pretty easy to jump in with self-help from the beginning. And it also sets the stage early in the relationship with the customer that, yes, we're here to help and we're here to provide the service for you in addition to whatever else we're doing. But these are ways that you can also aid yourself in the success of using our services.
But I also think one of the critical things that needs to happen here as an organization prepares for this kind of thing is, as an organization prepares for self-service, it's not necessarily one of those things that you build it and everybody's just going to magically show up. I think it's, if you really want to have the success with self-service, there has to be a marketing plan around that. And how do you educate and market and show the benefits of the self-service approach? How do you make it influence folks that they want to come and use the self-service portal? This is for some folks, it's a pretty significant transition from moving to live help or that kind of thing where they're calling in and talking to someone versus, hey, you can do some of this by yourself. Well, some of those folks may not necessarily think having a marketing plan around this can help with adoption as well.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think another thing to think about too, when you say can anyone do it and can we just put it in quickly or those kinds of things, you need to have the resources, I think, in order to do it. You need to have the commitment and the resources in order to do it right, right? So kind of what you were saying is, you know, you got to have the business maturity and those kinds of things. Are there ways that we can circumvent that, right? So can we put YouTube videos out there? Can we simplify this thing we call self-help, right? So it's not just a document or a link or a, how do our businesses learn and how do they learn and, how do our customers learn and what are they already exposed to so that this isn't necessarily a brand new thing. It's familiar to them, right? So I would say that while putting in self-service, at least initially, is anybody can do it, I would take a cautionary stance on that to make sure that you have the right maturity in the team running the self-service. Again, we kind of go back to, do I know the business? Secondarily, do you have the right funding? Can you do things to make it easier, and not just writing articles, but can we be more visual? Can we use YouTube? Can we use, things like that? Do we have the funding behind it, right, to make it successful? And kind of that maintenance annuity, if you will. Because I think those are part of achieving success on the self-service. It's not just the launch, but it's the forward thinking, the evolutionary thinking, what's the next step, how do you make corrections, those kinds of things. There's nothing worse than launching a self-service portal that, number one, had a bad design, and number two, has no plan for maintenance. That's a guaranteed low adoption, right? That's just money throwing it out the window. So I think the answer to that is, can anyone do it? Yes. Should anybody do it? No. There's a checklist of preparation items that you need to be ready with before I would even consider launching a self-service program.
Excellent. Thank you. Doug, you mentioned marketing, and we had a great question from the audience about particularly successful marketing approaches. Kelly, I know for you a lot of it had to do with the name. Would you be willing to share that?
Yeah, I mean, well, again, kind of going back to actually the success and the name and things like that, it was key for us. That marketing piece is absolutely, it was pivotal in our world. One of the things that we did early on is we actually had an IT marketer, somebody who had a marketing background that is working in IT and helped doing the communication, and he was invaluable to helping us write and think in that business language, right, and really find really develop a marketing plan. He helped us develop a really good marketing plan to help, like a marketer, think about it as a product and really how do we advertise this, how do we publicize this, how do we create a need for this, right? Things that IT people, don't really think, we don't think like marketers, right? And we're not, we shouldn't be, right? So we're thinking about, customer support, we're thinking about solving issues, problems, those kinds of things. Well, bringing in a marketer and developing a marketing plan, it's a completely different approach to looking at how do you launch this. And I think I love the idea of, thinking about how do we market it before you even start, because I think that's a key thing. And my suggestion would be to find that marketer, right? Whether it's a business marketer or an IT marketer, somebody in your company that does that, bring them in early on and ask them if they would help you out and market this as a product, right? So how do we market this, and what kinds of questions should I think about when I'm developing this program, and that kind of thing. I think that's key.
Absolutely. So we've touched on a few things here, whether it's the marketing or how you brand it and how you prep your organization for self-service. But it is a big initiative. If for some people it's going to cost a not insignificant amount of money, whether that's in terms of the tools you buy or the resources you have to secure. So what are the best ways to go about securing buy-in for self-service, whether that's at the level of your support staff or from your support leadership or even the organization's leadership? Any advice you guys have there? Kelly, I'll reach out to you for a second because I know you did this recently.
Yeah, and I think that is such a great question. That's part of how you're going to play in your program, right? How do I get buy-in? How do I sell this? And I think one of those ways is, number one, you need to know your audience, right? So who am I securing buy-in for? right? And in a typical company and organization, you're going to have multiple people you're going to need to get buy-in for. You're going to, number one, need to get buy-in to senior management, right? Because that's the show me the money, right? So that's key, right? I want to make sure they know what I'm doing because I need to be funded, not just for my launch, but I need to be funded for my maintenance, year 1, 2, and 3. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to adapt and have a successful program. So that's number one. Other things to think about is who do you need to buy in? Well, of course, you need it from your customers, right? Otherwise, you're not going to have a low adoption rate. And the third one, and not to be forgotten, is your team, right? You're leading a team. You need to bring them along with you because they need to buy into this and understand it, understand the philosophy behind it, and better yet, you want to get input from them. What should we put on the self-service portal? How can I make your job better? How can I remove redundant things from you and put them out there? So you definitely need to get buy-in from them. So the first step in securing buying is knowing who you're doing that with. What are your audience? Who do you need to secure it with? The second thing is really, and we're all about what's in it for me, right? So it's being able to translate the what's in it for me for each one of those audiences. So what's in it for senior management, that discussion is going to be different from what's in it from my help desk, right? So being able to write those and understand how you're going to develop this program from their perspectives is key. Senior management wants to know, what's the return on investment? What am I going to get, and how soon am I going to get it? Setting those expectations is key, right? So when you launch a self-service program, like we said earlier, the adoption rate, it's not immediate. It's not a build it and they'll come, right? It's more like you build it, you market it, and each day, each week, each month, you get more people, right? And you capitalize on that success, and things that are working, you build more of them to bring them in, right? And you do more marketing programs. So the ROI is key in setting senior management expectations on that funding, is telling them, hey, here's what this looks like. Here's what it looks like in the first quarter. Here's what we're predicting the second quarter, the third quarter. And payback may not be for 4 or 5 quarters in, right? And so that's really key in getting that buy-in. But being able to sell that ROI in a way that makes sense to them, right? And the business, how do you get buy-in from them? Well, understanding that customer and the business language is what's important to them, right? We talked about that earlier, but why would I go to this portal? What's in it for me? Am I going to get faster service? Am I going to get better help? Am I not going to have to wait in the call queue? Those kinds of things. And then the help desk, what's in it for them, right? I'm going to make your job better. I'm going to give you higher content. I'm going to educate you more. I'm going to, remove the redundant, simple things from your day, right? And have you really build up your capabilities and skill sets for, number one, you're more marketable. Number two, you have a chance to advance. All of those things. But that's a different discussion between the different audiences, right? So really knowing that as you're developing your program is key to getting that buy-in.
Mm-hmm. Doug Allersam, anything you want to add to that?
Sure, I'll hop in here. So I do think it's really important to show the leadership the repetitive tasks or repetitive asks that you keep getting from customers. Most organizations will have data on the amount of support tickets submitted for things like a password reset, et cetera. And it can really be streamlined if you put out a self-serve document that speaks to these common issues. And I think that that is often proof to leadership that this will have a significant return on investment.
Absolutely. So
yeah, getting leadership involved is. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying, definitely getting leadership involved is probably, I think, the hardest piece. Getting the team on board is really what I used to focus on, and I'd let others go to bat for with leadership. And what I found was really successful is getting the front lines to, get them involved in the conversation. Like you said, was, what are the tickets that are the most repetitive for you to resolve? What are some of the things that we can try to take off of your shoulders? And then at the same time, you can continue getting that buy-in by getting them involved in how to build it. Earlier, great idea. Make sure that you're getting the customer language said as well. And the front lines, the help desk guys and girls are going to be the ones that really know that. They know how to translate our speak to their speak. and getting them involved with that, and maybe even gamifying it a little bit by saying, how many of these topics can you help us resolve with the self-help, is really a good way to try to get buy-in from the front lines as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So now let's assume, for the sake of argument, that we've got everyone bought in. Your leadership's in, your support center gets it. They understand the why of self-service. How do we articulate to them and what is or should be the support team's role in self-service? How they may understand it theoretically, but in a practical sense, how do you communicate to them when they should deflect to self-service versus when they should just solve an issue themselves? So the larger question, again, is, what is the support team's role in self-service, or should be?
I think it's guiding the end user. So, if you think about, again, the journey map, the end user calls in to reset a password, using that as an example. Getting the help desk team to be like, okay, I can absolutely help you do that. Did you know that we have a new way of doing it yourself that might save you a little bit of time? Go back to, why is someone calling you? They need to get a job done. What's their second most valuable asset is their time. So getting kind of putting a sales hat on it with the help desk team and saying, I'm absolutely here to support you. I'm absolutely going to fix this. But let me show you another way that you can save yourself time or save yourself some money or some effort. Put it back in what they want to try to save. And that's going to get more adoption. Don't just say, hey, I can absolutely do this for you, but you also have this. Or why are you calling to do this when we have it online? You really got to work with the help desk team and give them a little bit of sales training almost. Not just do what we need to do to fix the issue, but also give them a way and a path to sell the idea that doing it yourself is going to be better for you in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that education component, for sure.
I think you make a great point there, Al, and what that really does is it allows the end user to maintain control of that transaction. They're getting the help that they need. They're in control of that transaction. Oh, by the way, here's an option for you. They may choose to take control of that by going into self-service, but to your point, and I thought that was a fantastic point, what the current help desk team should be is that safety net for the end user. And yeah, I absolutely can help you. And the end user maintains control of the interaction, even though we may be leading them and guiding them along and introducing self-service to them. We don't want to alienate the end user. They're just going to push me off onto the self-service portal. I don't want to use that thing yet. And I think the way that you just described that is absolutely perfect. We have to act as ambassadors for the self-service portal. We have to be a little bit more of a sales kind of approach with the self-service portal. And at the end of the day, we're there actually to continue to provide the support, whether that's through the self-service portal or they want to pick up the phone and talk to the help desk. We have to be able to provide both of those things. And as we said earlier, adoption will come. It'll take a little time.
So for organizations that aren't necessarily, or support organizations that aren't necessarily as comfortable with occupying that sales or marketing or educating role, do you guys have any tips for cultivating that skill set? Is it just a matter of making sure that your team itself is highly educated, or is there specific skills that they would require?
It might be a little bit of a skill set. I mean, help desk and customer service, we're not always salespeople. I mean, if we were salespeople, we'd be in the sales department. But really trying to get the buy-in, you can almost gamify it. That's a big thing in contact centers right now, is gamification. So how many of the users can you switch to self-service, or how many times did you have the same conversation without mentioning self-service? And I hate saying use a script, but give suggestions for the call. Call suggestions, call hints, or however you want to call it. But really put it back in the help desk hands, and don't be afraid to coach them and say, hey, this was a great call. You resolved this person's issue in a record amount of time. Kudos, but you never mentioned that there is now a new way to save them even more time. You know, and it's going to go back really, I think, on the management of the teams more than the help desk people on the phones. I think that's, you know, it's going to take a little bit of a transfer, a shift in thinking, but it's really useful in the long run if you can do it that way. And if you position it that you're helping the help desk people, you know, I think that's really a big key there too. You don't like taking 30 password reset calls a day. Why don't you start showing people how to do it themselves?
Absolutely. So in situations like that, we really seem to be discussing two different types of education. There's either the, you know, hey, this tool is available for you, I recommend you seek it out. Or there's also the, I'm going to fix your problem right now, and by the way, you know, if you run into this in the future, there's a solution for you that you can seek out yourself. Is that a best practice, the fix it for them and then direct them to where they can solve their problem?
Sure. I mean, even perhaps, you know, guiding the end user through the self-help. Let's go ahead and get you fixed now, and then let me show you how you can do it yourself. And that might help also increase adoption. Instead of just saying, go to this website or go to this FAQ, go to this video, let me walk you through the FAQ. Let me show you how to search for what you're looking for, and then you can see how it is to do it. And then, like was said, even at the end of all of that, if you still need me to help you, absolutely, that's why I'm here. I'd be delighted to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Kelly, were you going to add something?
Well, I think that I think it's just you can handle it a number of ways, but I love the idea that one of the ways we really got success, and it depends on the type of call, right? You've got a really complicated call and you're not even 100% sure how to solve it. Totally different dialogue, right? But, you know, those common routine things that we've built the self-service portal for, right? So you need to work with your team and say, you know, on these type of calls, these top 10 calls, right? These are self-service calls, and here's how we're going to write this dialogue. Here's how I'd like you to handle this call, right? So let's just take, for example, the most common one, password reset. You know, what we did for early adoption there was to say, you know, I know you're calling for your password. Let me walk you through this. Obviously, you're near a computer, so I know you've got, you know, internet and computer capability. This is how we're going to change your password. And we walk them through doing it themselves, where, you know, we kind of made a stance to say you're not allowed to go and just do it through, you know, the normal back-end infrastructure. When they call up, you know, use your judgment on priority, right? You got a senior leader. That's probably not the best way to do it, but we're able to see who's calling in, right? So we know the audience, but we change the password. We have them change it while we're on the phone. We do a number of those things. We try to incent use of the portal. So if they call in on any one of those 10 things, we're going to do that transaction with them on the phone through the portal. And then we just say, as we, you know, just a lot of encouragement, see how easy this is, it wasn't this great. You know, now when you don't have to call in and wait 5 minutes for an analyst, you can just do it yourself. And we always have great response. It's always a very positive, thank you for showing me that. Next time I am going to go through the portal, I've bookmarked it, I know how to find it. Thank you for just staying on the phone while I walk through this. And we've had great results with that. Now, again, the caveat is it doesn't work for everything, but if you could pick your top 5 to 10 things that you designed the portal for that have that self-help, we talked about the self-help, the one and done, you go in and do it, you get it done. Those are perfect candidates for really, you know, when you go live saying, from this day forward, you're not going to go in and do it yourself. You're going to have the user do it, right? And we know it'll take an extra 2 or 3 minutes per call. We've planned that in our adoption rate for the self-service portal, so we understand that. But here's how we're going to do it. And we had really huge adoption with that. Now, again, the calls took longer in the beginning, you know, and it was a little bit of change of paradigm for our help desk team, but it really helped the adoption the first couple months. And as we went on, we saw less and less people calling for that. So there was a direct result in correlation with lowering the types of calls on that.
Excellent. Well, that leads pretty organically to our next question, which is about, how you get people to actually use self-service. We had a great question from the audience. So many of our customers and our end users and our staff are steeped in phone-based service. That's how it's been for so long. So how do you get people to use self-service versus just picking up the phone? And Sam, I know, LogMeIn works with clients of all shapes and sizes. So what have you seen work?
Sure. So I think, first and foremost, I think that the service tool or the web portal needs to be extremely, extremely intuitive and also easy to use. They really need to enjoy using the self-service portal, and it needs to be interactive. Whether I personally have found that if it's an article that just lists steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's not nearly as effective or meaningful, essentially, than something that is, a flow, where it says, okay, did you hit Control-Alt-Delete on your machine? Next, you want to select a password. Make sure it's a secure password. I think it's really important to make it intuitive and also to make it truly enjoyable for the end users. Things like, color schemes. Marketing can usually help with color schemes so that, they're in a comfortable place where they are using that self-service portal. And then the support staff can help with intuitive solutions to the issues that are covered in the portal. Things like why you may not need to use 10 steps to solve this problem when you can use 7 steps to solve this problem. And the support staff, the tech support staff, is really a good team to use for that. Also, I think that it's, first of all, the incentive is that the end users won't have to wait for someone from the help desk to reach out to provide support. We've all been in those instances where you put in a help desk ticket and you wait an hour. But maybe it's something that is imperative and you need to have your VPN connected by, within the next 2 minutes so that you can call a customer to make a sales call. I think if you can prove that it is a quicker solution to an issue, that they will really buy in, and then they can resolve the issues on their own and then get back to the work that they were hired for.
Absolutely. Kelly or Duggar, Al?
Well, I think creating incentives are really a key to success, right? Bringing those users to the portal, right? What's in it for me? I kind of talked about that earlier. You've got to create a what's in it for me program or statement or something to get them to come to the portal. One of the few things that we did, this wouldn't work in every organization, but on our ACDQ, when they select that option and we know there's a self-service option, we would actually delay the call 30 seconds, and we would have them listen in to our marketing spiel. Hey, I know you're waiting here, but you don't have to. Did you realize that if you go here, blah, 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 you could reset your password in under 20 seconds? Meanwhile, you've just listened to this whole spiel, right, and you could have already done it. So we put an intentional delay so they would listen to the marketing spiel in a very fun way. We made it pretty uplifting and kind of fun to listen to it, so it wasn't that boring voice. But, so we put an intentional delay in that ACD option to really inspire them to go into that portal, right, to go into the self-service portal and do those self-help things. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it, kind of a fun thing, we kind of talked about gamification, but another thing we did was on the website, and this is in the early adoption pages. We're a little bit more mature now, but when we were first launching it, we had games and programs to get people to go out there and explore the website, things that they could get an Amazon gift card, if they could be entered in a raffle for these kinds of things. We did it for the first year of the portal. We every month we picked people who use the self-service portal, we picked their names out of a hat and awarded them a gift card, and then we published that on the portal. We said, hey, this month's winner for using self-service are, these people. And I can't directly tie the results of our adoption rate to that incentive plan. I mean, we weren't that quite mature, but I think all of these programs kind of helped bring people back to the portal, right? So we did that, kind of made it fun, kind of a place to get information, that kind of thing. So incentivizing is, another way to do that is just to make sure that your content is rock solid on the portal, that the only place to get that information is on that self-service portal so that people are going to go there, right? So, and make it more part of the culture, right? So if you're going to have maintenance outages on your systems or major outage releases or things like that, get them to go to the portal, right? Put something on that portal that is going to get them in there. Maybe not just for self-service, but just that culture of going single pane of glass, right? It's a single place I go for all this customer information. You'll find a higher adoption rate that way too, right? So it's kind of that what's in it for me. Oh, I got to go to the portal and check, the outages, or I've got to go to the portal and see if I'm qualified for this, or so we've just increasingly been more mature in that, and so as we've done global announcements and things like that, we've redirected them back to the self-service portal just for information, just for links and things like that. So we've kind of done incentivizing that way as well.
Absolutely. So, now let's take as an assumption that you've gotten people bought in, you've got your customers using it, and it's active, it's embedded. What are some critical metrics for demonstrating the positive ROI of self-service? This plays directly into communicating the value to, your leadership, or even to maybe some users who are pretty intractable and keep calling, but, should be using self-service. What are those data points you can communicate to show it's a success? And Kelly, I'll pass that one to you.
Okay, well, and again, this is part of your overall plan before we even launch. Knowing what you want to measure to provide ROI and is key before you even start, because that way you'll know what to design inside your portal, right? But one of the key metrics for us really was we had a huge increase, and again, we were learning as we went on, but our agent productivity went up immeasurably. And the reason why, because in a part of our design and what we decided was not only do we want to build a self-help, but we want to build a place where people are going to go and enter their tickets, but they're going to enter them in a system that is, number one, written in the business language. That's key, right? They'll come back, but that they'll put all the information I need to resolve the issue if they can, right? So we have a high adoption rate, and we get a lot of self-service tickets, but maybe it's not something they can solve themselves, but they put everything in the ticket, right? So I don't have to do a call back, right? So that everything's in there. It's a first call. It's almost like a first ticket resolution. So our first ticket resolution rate has gone up immensely. We don't have to call users back for more information, and we can spread those tickets out. So we do what's called we do multi-ticket processing. So in other words, an agent can be on the phone with a customer as well as handling self-service tickets, right? So they can, again, we can't do two things at once, but there's a lot of downtime on the phone. So while a user's rebooting their machine or doing something themselves, we are actually handling the self-service tickets as well. So a byproduct of our ROI is a huge increase in agent productivity. The number of tickets, whether it be voice or self-service tickets, they can handle went up about 25%. So that was a huge ROI. So I needed less people, right, to handle our tickets, right? So I can reallocate those people to either more difficult tasks or maybe moving into desktop or something else, right? So we increase the productivity of our staff by making sure on these self-service tickets, number one, we got everything in them to resolve them. Number two, the deflection, right? So you need to be able to measure, here's another aspect, you need to be able to measure deflection. How many users went to your site, clicked on the knowledge base, and it resolved their issue? You need to make sure you're designing your self-service portal in a way you can measure that. A lot of people forget to do site counts or in their knowledge base to say, was this helpful or not, yes or no, right? You need to be able to think about those things as you're designing your portal with ROI in mind, so you make sure you're measuring those, right? How many hits do we have in the portal? How many hits do we have in this knowledge base? And did it resolve your issue, yes or no? If it did, you can count that as a positive one in your ROI. That's a ticket deflection. So if you've got your unit cost per ticket, you can say, we had 395 ticket deflections this month times the, unit cost of a ticket. That is pure savings in dollars and productivity and FTE, people you would have to hire, but now you don't because they get handled with self-service. So a critical success factor, number one, in designing your self-service portal is knowing what you need to count for your ROI, right? Designing them so that I am going to count this, I'm going to count that, I'm going to put a counter on that, and that kind of thing. So another thing to look at the productivity was a big one, the less ticket touches. So are you guys measuring the amount of time a ticket has to be touched? So you get the phone call, and I'm not talking about first call resolution, right? That in itself is a whole measurement. But what about the number of times your team takes the call and you route the ticket around, right? So if you can think about how you touch that, and if you can reduce the number of ticket touches, there's savings there as well. That's kind of a hidden benefit of self-service. If you're getting all the information up front, you don't have to do callbacks. You can resolve the ticket on first touch. That's another thing that's really important to measure on ROI. As well as one of the other things we did to incentivize is that we decided when we did our self-service program that the self-service tickets were going to get higher priority than others. So we have a faster resolution on those tickets. So they get resolved faster, and so you can put some business savings in there. So if you actually got them back and working in a lower amount of time, there's some productivity value there that you can share on ROI with the business.
Absolutely. Okay, so I want to take us into like our last panel question, and I'm making a command decision at this moment that we're not going to cover gotchas and no-nos because I got a great question from the audience about, you know, what we see as the actual future of self-service. You know, is it going to be machine learning? Is it going to be AI? You know, where do we see self-service going in maybe the next 3 to 5 years, or even beyond if you've thought that far ahead? So I'm going to give each of you, you know, about a minute to weigh in. So Sam, I'll start with you.
Sure. So I really do think that it's going in that direction. I think that with machine learning and artificial intelligence kind of on the forefront right now, and we're seeing emerging markets really start to use them in many different ways, I think the self-service portals can certainly benefit from that. You know, as Kelly said, it's a slow process. It's not something that you can just put out into, you know, the world, onto your website, wherever you're going to host it, and just expect people to use it. You do have to have those back-end processes that are improving the process. You know, getting data and getting metrics on how it's working and how quickly it's working, and then they can simply be improved. I think that the other benefit of using something like AI and machine learning is that it makes it easier to update these self-help portals. You don't have to go in daily. You know, you can leverage AI and machine learning to truly keep these completely 100% up to date. And that also builds trust with the end users that are using these self-help portals, because they, you know, the first time they go to your portal and see incorrect information, their trust is going to be decreased.
Absolutely. Al, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. Using machine learning and AI is going to be, you know, the next step. And even further, you know, again, 5, 10, 15 years down the road is thinking about how machine learning and the AIs might do precognition for other ticket resolutions. You know, if you can have the machines understand patterns that, you know, this type of end user profile always calls for password resets on Mondays, then they can perhaps try to predict that call flow and send out, you know, automated reminders. Don't forget, this is how you change your password if you need it. And, you know, by really trying to do that precognition, the next issue resolution, I think, is going to be the big piece of how Desk is going to go.
Awesome. Doug, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really where it's going to go. It's going to go from self-help to preventative kinds of actions. And I think this is where the machine learning and AI comes into play. Understanding and detecting, you know, there's a lot of data that is coming into the self-service portal. And you know, it's going to become nearly impossible for humans to kind of analyze that data to the degree that would become beneficial to the organization. So understanding the trends and being more proactive, and even saving the user from having to get into the portal, I think, is where it's going to go. And that's really going to free up help desk people to do the more advanced kinds of work. So I think it's an exciting time in that regard.
Agreed. All right, and Kelly?
I agree. I definitely agree with all the panelists so far on that. I think it is the wave of the future, but what I do think is in order to take advantage of that, you do need to really understand what's coming in at a very detailed level, understand your workload, understand what qualifies for that, be ready to talk about that. And one of the great ways to do that is to develop a self-service program and to spend the time and effort to really understand what's going to go in this program, what are the common easy things, what are the routine things, and be ready for that AI when it comes, right? The AI is not going to handle the most complex things. They're going to handle the easier things right out of the gate. So you'll be way ahead of the game by the time those services become available with our vendors and things like that. So I think it's in the future, but I don't think in any way it precludes, our team or our businesses from starting that very elementary, very beginning level self-service and spending the time and doing the hard work on analyzing, what is coming in and which ones are simple and easy and which ones are more complex. I think that's a good use of time to get ready for the future.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, everyone. This has really been a great panel discussion, and we're tremendously grateful for your insights into self-service. Now I'd like to hand things off to Sam, who's going to tell us a little bit about how Rescue by LogMeIn empowers self-service. So Sam, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. So as Megan mentioned in the beginning, I'm a customer success manager for LogMeIn Rescue, really focused on increasing adoption and usage by explaining to customers how to leverage all the features that are available in LogMeIn's products. So a quick intro to Rescue. LogMeIn Rescue is a remote support tool that allows internal and external support organizations to provide robust troubleshooting services for their end users. Whether it's a Windows or Mac computer or an Android or iOS phone, Rescue makes it easy for support agents to quickly and securely diagnose and solve problems. Rescue also provides remote support to devices that are not necessarily internet connected through Rescue Lens. Lens actually enables technicians to support pretty much anything in the office or in the field through a high-quality live video stream directly from the end user's smartphone. So to tie back to the topics that were discussed today, there are several ways in which Rescue can really help organizations empower their customers to self-serve on their own. First, when it comes to onboarding, Rescue can help IT teams set up new devices for newly hired employees. With Rescue, help desk technicians can remote into a device, transfer files, install programs, and also configure applications quickly and seamlessly. By providing users with the tools they need to do their job before they actually get started, teams will have fewer incoming requests during the onboarding period, and it'll make everyone's lives significantly easier. Additionally, as these requests do come through, and they always will, there's really no way to have a true self-service. There is always going to need to be that human interaction. Agents can easily push URLs directly to the end users, and that'll instruct them where to find documentation and how-to guides for the software and services they'll be utilizing. And that leads me to my second point, which is education. Now, no matter how robust and easy to use your help center might be, there will always be incoming tickets and support requests. As organizations use tools like Rescue to troubleshoot and resolve help desk tickets, they can use their remote support tool as a means to educate their customers during the session. And this will actually show them how to solve problems like this in the future, as we discussed during the panel. With features like remote view, remote control, whiteboarding, and even annotation tools, technicians can easily walk users through the solution process and show them step-by-step how to resolve the issue on their own. Now, I actually saw the idea of empowering self-service unfold in real life a few months ago. A LogMeIn customer of mine who has been using Rescue for years reached out to me asking for advice. They recently deployed new laptops to the entire organization and had an immediate massive increase in service requests because of a single issue. Essentially, the employees were unable to connect to the corporate VPN using the new operating systems. Now, the technicians were dealing with this on a one-off basis. They were spending huge amounts of time fixing the problem one computer at a time. So I thought about it a little, suggested that instead of dealing with this as a one-off issue, they should leverage Rescue to do a screen recording of the solution and then send out a video to all employees in hopes that they could fix the issue on their own. I actually followed up with them last week, and they were very happy to report that the service requests were back down to normal, and they received a ton of positive feedback for the video recording. They took it a step further and started adding videos for solutions to common problems like password resets and VPN issues to a self-service portal that they already had in place. Now, every time I train a new Rescue customer how to make the most of Rescue, I will always use the example to illustrate truly how they can leverage the tools they have to make everyone's lives easier. So as you think about how you can empower your end users to assist themselves before they reach out to the help desk, make sure your strategy includes remote support. We know that self-service won't be the answer to every single question, and when it's not, you'll need a strong tool to help resolve those issues quickly so that your employees can go on with their day and do the work they need to do. We know IT teams are continually trying to streamline their process and also be more efficient. With accessible self-service resources and easy-to-use remote support tools, you'll be well on your way to doing just that. And that's all I got from the LogMeIn rescue side. Thank you, everyone, and I'm going to pass it back over to Megan.
All right, thanks, Sam. So just a reminder, please take a moment to rate this webinar. We really appreciate your feedback, and we use it to continually improve our webinar program. And finally, as a reminder, we're just 4 weeks away from Fusion 17, which is the industry's premier service management event. Fusion will be taking place from October 31st through November 3rd in Orlando at the Rosen Shingle Creek, which we are very fortunate sustained no damage in Hurricane Irma. While you're there, please be sure to visit LogMeIn at booth 503. Again, we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar on November 14th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you to our panelists, Al, Kelly, Doug, and Sam, and to our sponsor, Rescue by LogMeIn, and to all of you for attending. On behalf of HDI, thank you so much for your time and have a great customer service week.